Have you ever wondered what truly goes on behind closed doors when a narcissist is left completely alone? Picture for a moment the person who impresses everyone with their charm, who commands every room with a strange kind of confidence and superiority. Now imagine that same person revealing a side of themselves so troubling, so stripped of all nice manners, that it leaves you both disturbed and strangely sad. When the world isn't watching, a narcissist's true nature often comes to light, exposing habits that most people would never believe possible. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most interesting and troubling topics in the study of personality problems, the strange and awful things narcissists tend to do when they are alone. This isn't about judging or mocking anyone. It's about understanding what drives these hidden habits, the kind that grow out of years of insecurity, emotional tricks, and a desperate need to stay in control. What you'll discover might change the way you look at narcissism forever. In this discussion, we're going to explore these patterns in detail, combining what has been learned from clinical psychology, personal observation, and countless real-life stories. Stay with me until the end, as we slowly peel back the layers of narcissistic behavior and see what actually happens in the solitude of their private world. A world that, despite appearing glamorous and perfect from the outside, is often filled with dark ways of behaving and disturbing habits. These strange, private moments are both a way to protect themselves and a cry for approval, a reflection of how deeply broken the narcissist's inner life truly is. Welcome to this exploration of the hidden and often revolting habits narcissists show when they believe no one is watching. I invite you to walk through this topic with me, not from a place of judgment, but from curiosity and awareness. Because understanding what they do in their private moments gives us insight into what truly drives their manipulation, their constant need for praise, and their endless inner battles. Before we begin, take a moment to support our work by subscribing, liking this video, and sharing it with those who might need to understand these psychological dynamics. By doing that, you're helping build a space that values truth, empathy, and healing. A space where we can learn together and bring light to behaviors that are usually hidden in the shadows. Now, let's start this journey by taking a closer look at what happens when a narcissist no longer has an audience. When they're alone, the constant stream of approval they crave disappears. What's left behind is a battle between their public mask and their private self. And it's in that silence that their most troubling habits begin to surface. One of the first things to understand is their relationship with their own reflection. When left alone, many narcissists start what can only be described as a habit of loving themselves. They spend long periods of time staring into the mirror, not just fixing their hair or checking their appearance, but actively putting on a show for themselves. They might whisper self-praise, recite affirmations, criticize the smallest imperfections, or record videos and photos to analyze later. To an outside observer, this might look silly, even sad. But for the narcissist, it's a key routine. The mirror becomes their silent audience, a replacement for the constant admiration they crave, but can't live without when no one else is there. To feed their ego, they turn inward, creating a loop of endless self-focus. It's a strange and obsessive act that reveals how weak their self-worth really is. Psychological studies on narcissism have long shown that this need to constantly confirm their worth is one of the defining traits of the disorder. The mirror, in a sense, becomes a lifeline, a way for them to maintain the illusion of perfection, even when the outside world is absent. The endless grooming, posing, or self-praise might seem vain, but it's actually a desperate attempt to hold together a crumbling identity built on admiration and control. When the mirror routine ends, another disturbing pattern often begins. Many narcissists talk to themselves in private, swinging between self-glorification and self-hatred. This isn't gentle self-reflection. It's more like a private performance, filled with contradictions. One moment they brag about their brilliance, their power, or their charm. The next they curse themselves for any small failure, humiliation, or flaw they notice. Sometimes they even talk about themselves in the third person, as if they're both the hero and the critic in their own twisted story. This kind of inner dialogue might sound strange, but it's incredibly common among narcissists. It shows the reality they try so hard to hide that their big belief in themselves is often just a mask covering strong, hurtful lack of confidence. Psychologists describe this as the war between their ideal self, the perfect version they try to show, and their real self, which they secretly hate and fear. When they're alone, there's no one to distract them from that inner fight. So they argue with themselves, boast to themselves, and tear themselves apart, all in the privacy of their own mind. It's both tragic and disturbing because it reveals how unstable their inner world truly is. But their private life doesn't stop at mirrors and self-talk. In today's digital world, narcissists often replace real approval with virtual admiration. When alone, many of them spend hours obsessively scrolling through their social media, watching how others respond to their posts and comparing themselves to everyone else. They check old pictures and comments, count the likes and shares, and sometimes even stalk the profiles of those who once admired them or criticized them. This habit can become addictive, a toxic cycle of hope and disappointment. Every notification gives them a temporary high. Every lack of response feels like rejection. And because their self-worth depends so heavily on outside praise, they become trapped in this digital loop of constant checking and emotional chaos. Researchers have found that social media can be very harmful for people with narcissistic traits because it gives them exactly what they want: attention, envy, and control, while making the empty feeling worse that they're trying to escape. So, when a narcissist is alone, their phone becomes their new mirror, and the endless scrolling becomes a form of silent self-torture. Another dark and deeply troubling thing narcissists do when left alone is imagining how to get back at people. They replay moments when someone embarrassed or rejected them and imagine ways to regain control. These revenge fantasies can become extremely detailed. They might picture confrontations, victories, or even the suffering of the people they blame for their pain. Sometimes they write these fantasies down or record angry voice memos that no one will ever hear. These private acts of rage give them a sense of power. When they feel powerless, it's their way of rewriting the story in their favor, even if it's only in their imagination. Psychological research shows that narcissists are highly sensitive to rejection and criticism, and their anger doesn't fade easily. When they're alone without anyone to impress, that suppressed anger turns inward and festers, creating dangerous and obsessive thoughts. These fantasies may never become actions, but they reveal how much resentment and hostility lies beneath the surface of their charming mask. What makes these fantasies so frightening is how detached from reality they can be. The narcissist doesn't see the situation as others would. Instead, they rewrite it in their mind until they become the hero and the victim all at once. This inner story protects their ego but isolates them even more from the real world when the need for control and approval clashes with the fear of failure. Their inner world becomes a battlefield. Their solitude, which could be a space for thought or healing, becomes instead a stage for self-worship, rage, and endless mental rehearsals of revenge. It's a painful cycle, and one that most narcissists never break because they can't admit it exists in the first place. Outside praise often keeps narcissists hooked on replaying moments where they felt insulted, rejected, or criticized. This constant mental replay becomes a form of emotional self-punishment, a way to keep their old wounds alive in their minds. Even when those memories continue to chip away at their already fragile self-worth, they cannot let go. They might spend long hours scrolling through old messages, rewatching past recordings, or writing down every perceived unfairness in obsessive detail. This focus on past pain isn't just quiet reflection. It's an active, ongoing cycle that feeds their anger and strengthens their bitterness. Psychological studies show that this kind of rumination leads to a vicious loop of negativity where every remembered insult grows larger in their minds and becomes more proof that they are always the victim. For a narcissist, this emotional self-torture becomes a twisted form of approval. It keeps alive the story they tell themselves that the world is unfair and they are the ones wronged. Though this belief is false, it becomes a core part of who they are. In private, the sixth and final disturbing behavior that narcissists often show is secret self-glorification through wrong self-talk and ritual-like habits. When they are alone, away from the eyes of others, narcissists often perform little routines meant to boost their weak ego. This may include constant mirror gazing, self-praise, or arranging their surroundings to match the perfect image they hold of themselves. Sometimes they drift into detailed fantasies about future success, victories, or revenge against those who once doubted them. These private behaviors often come with an inner voice that exaggerates their greatness. Their inner talk sounds confident but carries a faint undertone of fear and lack of confidence. The need to keep reinforcing their own worth becomes like an addiction, something they cannot stop. Every small action feels like proof of their importance. Yet every quiet moment also reminds them of how empty they feel inside. This private self-worship might look absurd or even sad to an outsider, but it is in truth a deep and troubling sign of how completely self-deception and emotional damage have taken over their lives. When we look closely at these 6 disturbing things narcissists often do when they're alone: constant self-admiration, inner conflict-filled self-talk, obsessive online behavior, vengeful daydreaming, harmful coping, and ritualistic self-glorification, we see that these are not just odd habits. They are symptoms of deep emotional pain and inner instability. Each behavior, no matter how unpleasant, gives us a window into the narcissist's complex mind, a person caught between an inflated public image and a private world full of torment. From a psychological view, these actions are unhealthy ways of coping, patterns learned over years of manipulation, rejection, and unmet needs for attention and connection. Clinical research also shows that people with narcissistic traits often experience great emotional chaos when they're by themselves. The behaviors we see in their solitude are often the raw, unfiltered expressions of that inner suffering. And while these behaviors may seem awful, they can also serve as signals not of evil, but of deep, unresolved pain. A narcissist's actions, no matter how unpleasant, are reflections of old emotional wounds and the endless effort to keep up a mask of perfection. In many ways, these disturbing habits are silent cries for help. Behind all the arrogance and control lies a person who is in truth deeply unhappy and afraid. As a psychologist, I have seen how these behaviors can offer key insight into the inner world of those struggling with narcissistic traits. They act as warnings and also as possible entry points for healing. Understanding these hidden patterns is the first step in dealing with the pain underneath them. It reminds us that even the most destructive actions come from deep, often unhealed human experiences. Recognizing these behaviors in someone with narcissistic tendencies can also be a powerful tool for self-protection. If you are close to someone who shows these unpleasant private habits, whether in a personal or professional setting, it's important to remember that their actions are not about you. They come from their own chaos. Developing awareness helps you set limits and protect yourself emotionally. That might mean seeking support from a mental health expert, making your limits clear, or when necessary, stepping away from the toxic connection altogether. By doing this, you protect your own peace and take part in creating a world that better understands how trauma and insecurity can twist behavior. In the end, the 6 disturbing things narcissists do when they are alone: excessive self-admiration, conflicted inner dialogue, obsessive digital stalking, revenge-based fantasies, self-harming coping tactics, and ritualistic self-glorification reveal the raw, messy truth beneath the mask. They show a hidden world filled with restlessness, insecurity, and suffering. These aren't just strange habits. They are the echoes of a lifetime spent chasing approval and control. They remind us of a sobering truth. Every act, even the most unpleasant one, is part of a person's struggle to handle the unbearable weight of their own self-image. By looking closely at these patterns, we get knowledge not only of how a narcissist thinks, but also the power to recognize and heal from the harm such behaviors cause. Thank you for staying with me through this deep exploration of the 6 disturbing things narcissists do when they're alone. Your time and attention mean a lot. If this discussion has helped you understand these hidden behaviors, please subscribe, like, and share this video with others who might benefit from it. Your support helps us grow a community built on empathy, self-awareness, and healing. I invite you to share your thoughts and personal experiences in the comments so we can keep this conversation alive. Together, we can continue to understand the link between trauma, self-image, and the secret routines of those who hide behind the mask of superiority. Thank you once again for being here. I look forward to seeing you in future talks as we explore more topics that encourage recovery, emotional strength, and lasting inner peace.